You were listening to the Mark Petroni radio program, heard exclusively on News Talk, Saga 960.
All right. We have Miles Kristen on the line. Miles coming to us from Madison, Wisconsin. Mark Petroni with you on Saga 960. And Miles got in touch with me because he was trying to find the entire speech, the Trump speech at CPAC, and couldn't do so because of all the deplatforming by Google, YouTube, of course, Facebook, Twitter. And so all these big tech platforms that just think that Trump is a guy that they should not have on their platform anywhere, despite the interest even by people who voted for Biden. But let's hear a little bit from Biden's speech. This was covered later on by Fox.
The Biden administration has turned the border into the single greatest disaster. Our movement is the greatest in American history, and it has just begun.
Former President Trump touting his administration's successes while taking aim at President Biden during
All right, so there you go. Now it ticked you off because, well, I mean, you're a Biden voter, so but you take no joy in the fact that Trump has been deplatformed, giving these large speeches to huge numbers of people. I think he spoke in front of 48,000 people not that long ago, huge rally. And then, of course, you have the CPAC 2024 straw poll, which suggests that Trump is hugely favored to be the representative for the Republican Party in the election of that year. So what do you make of all this?
Well, it's like the tech platforms, they're not even going to let a speech by Trump go on the air. Plenty of really horrible stuff you can find on YouTube. But it's just like the people on the left want to completely ignore Trump when he hasn't actually gone away. And, I like to listen to both sides of an argument or all sides of an argument. And I can't even find Trump's speech unless I go to the C-SPAN website or something like that. And, it's funny. I had dinner this week, Monday night with a more conservative person and Tuesday night with a more liberal person. And last night when I was out with the more liberal person, and I mentioned something about Trump running again in 2024, their mind melted. They couldn't handle that idea. They couldn't even fathom that he's going to run again. And when I was talking with the conservative person, they were talking more about their business and how they can't hire people. And it's like there's so much going on where he could totally run again. He can totally become the candidate again, and he could become president again. It wouldn't be the first time in American history something like this has happened.
Would you consider voting for him next time?
No, I mean, but I mean, at the same time, I'm not gonna vote to reelect Biden. I mean, my vote for Biden really came.
Why not? I'm just curious.
I won't support Biden because he's awful. I mean, the only single issue that I voted for him on was that I thought that he would do a better job in dealing with COVID. But honestly, even his response to COVID has been not that great in some ways because, we still have large numbers of unvaccinated people, and we're just going to completely ignore that, particular people don't want to get vaccinated. And yet we're going to, continue handing out these checks to people to stay home when they're not even staying home. I mean,
you want forced vaccinations? Is that part of
your
bailiwick?
No, I don't want forced vaccinations in any way. I mean, I think it's optional if you want to take it or not. But I mean, the biggest thing I think of all is that we need testing. We need to have tests that people can purchase. We need to have tests that people can, take at home that aren't intrusive. I mean, that's the thing is how do you stop COVID? I mean, you locate where it is, and those who have it should just then stay home so that it, goes away with them. Instead, we've got it out there, and it's going to keep lingering.
Isn't it pretty much over though? I mean, you've got herd immunity now. A lot of Americans have been immunized. Others have chosen not to. I mean, do you know a lot of sick people? Are you still hearing of people ending up in hospital as a result of COVID?
The numbers are extremely low.
So what are you worried about?
Well, I mean, the possibility of variants and so forth. And, I think we should have more options when people catch this. There should be anything that can help treat it should be readily available. And like I said the other day, there should be more options for different types of vaccines. And, getting the regulations out of the healthcare industry and giving people more options is definitely a good thing. I just think that if we, could have enough tests the same way we can test for other diseases and so forth, that you would see the numbers go down even, more if we had more ability to have fast testing.
But it's devastated the economy. I don't know what things are like in Wisconsin, but you were telling me just before we started rolling, Miles, that there are stores that can't get people to work as people are staying home, collecting money from the government. In the meantime, you were pointing out homeless people who presumably can't find a job. But you walk through the mall and every other store has a sign up saying, help needed. We're hiring, right?
I mean, honestly, homelessness is probably even more serious than COVID at this point. You've got, 500,000 Americans who were homeless before all this started. And who knows how many more have been brought into poverty because of the lockdowns and the shutdowns. And then on top of it, you have these people who are deciding not to work, that are getting paid not to work. Some people got furloughed from their jobs, lost, thousands and thousands of dollars. And then, they got nothing for their furlough time. And then other people who lost a minimum wage job and made a lot of money, getting these checks, and the government's paying people not to work, and they're not even necessarily paying people to stay home at this point, because, you can get these checks and then you're still going out to the bar. So it's like, you're going to get paid money to not work because of COVID, but you're going to do things that are going to put you more at risk for COVID. It makes no sense.
I got to ask you about Cuba, because the Biden administration now has warned Cubans and Haitians against the idea of sailing to the United States. Do not risk your life. Now, these guys also have an open border in which thousands of people have just been approaching and crossing the border. Many, quite often, from what I understand, Miles, they've just filtered into the population. But here it is, the Cubans needing help because they live in a communist country, and Biden says, "Oh, you can't come here. We don't want you." I mean, there's something seriously warped here. I suspect that he knows that Cubans generally tend to vote Republican because they don't want communism. They just, as soon as they experience the misery of living in a communist country, the last thing they wanted is more communism coming to the United States. So they're not going to vote Democrat. And their leftist agenda, they're going to vote for people that they think are freedom-loving individuals like Trump. So is that why Biden is warning the Cubans not to come to America?
Probably. Yeah. I mean, it goes against their narrative. They have a very specific narrative that they want, and they're trying
to flip states blue, right? That's the whole point of open borders. That's the whole point of not enforcing the border laws. I mean, that's what they're doing, right? People are coming in and they're like flying them all over the country, presumably trying to increase the numbers of people that might vote Democrat in time for the midterms.
They definitely aren't making any effort to win over Republicans. And what's so crazy is you think back to 2016, the Democrats had no problem telling the Bernie Sanders people that they were too radical. I mean, they literally had Sarah Silverman at the DNC convention in 2016 telling the Bernie people they were crazy. And then here we are, 5 years later, and the Democrats and those on the left, for the most part, are pretty much supporting riots, supporting Hamas, supporting every fringe issue possible. I mean, and then you've got millions of people that are not Democrats, that are not Republicans, that are baffled. And I would just the other day, I literally had talked to two different friends of mine who I hadn't seen in a while. And both of them told me that, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, they were very liberal. And now they're talking about how they feel like they're almost in the conservative branch now, because supporting freedom of speech, supporting a certain level of the Second Amendment. This is all making them feel like they're a conservative now because the left has just completely lost their mind.
Yeah, but they lost it ages ago. They lost it before the last presidential election, and Biden is president today. So,
well, I was just saying the other day, it's like Trump drove the left insane, but it wasn't a long drive.
All right, so you've got the midterms next year. How are things shaping up? I mean, you've spoken to people. You say that some of your friends, contacts who used to be solidly Democrats, now are thinking, I don't know, these guys seem crazy to me. There's, a $3 trillion stimulus package? Is that what they're talking about? I mean, it just never ends with these people.
I would assume that, in this last election, you had large numbers of people that were Green Party, for instance, who probably put their principles aside and voted for Biden. And, there was even some libertarians like myself who, ended up voting for Biden. We're not going to do that again in 2024. I mean, but hopefully by 2024, I mean, COVID has been eradicated. And without COVID, I mean, I don't know what kind of scare they'd have to build up in order to get people to try to vote for the Democrats, Trump's Trump's, in many opinion, would be that, he's a little too over the top. And, you think back to like 2008 when you had a guy like Ron Paul, and like him or not, I mean, Ron Paul did have this very principled message of liberty and so forth. And, if the Republican Party could come up with somebody like Ron Paul, or Rand Paul for that matter, maybe, I think they would do very well. But, it's most likely going to be Trump unless Trump decides that he wants to support somebody else running.
All right. So on another front, 63% of Americans believe that China should pay pandemic reparations. The Wuhan virus, which has caused catastrophic damage to the economy. I mean, not to mention the deaths. But are you on that train as well, suggesting that the Chi-Coms should pony up with trillions of dollars in reparations over the apparent release of the Wuhan virus?
I mean, in the end, the lab leak theory is not 100% proven one way or another, but I think it's safe to say that China did not tell us what they knew, and that they hold responsibility for what happened. So yeah, I mean, I do think that there certainly should be economic repercussions for what happened. And I mean, yeah, I would even say, we should be boycotting a country that has caused so much misery, not just between COVID, but other things as well. When we talk about things like that, I just got to think of John Cena, like the world's biggest wrestler, and his extremely pathetic apology to China.
I don't even know what that is. What is that? Who
was
that?
John Cena is like this well-known American wrestler. He's in some of the Fast and the Furious movies.
Oh, okay.
And he made the mistake of referring to Taiwan or Thailand as a country. And so then he literally had, and then he had to make this whole apology in Chinese. It was or in Mandarin or whatever. It's absolutely insane.
Wow, reminds me of that American who was interned and jailed in North Korea and used his blinking out a Morse code message, telling people that he was under duress, that he was forced to apologize under duress. So here's an American who feels compelled to apologize to China because he dared suggest that Taiwan is a country. Yeah, well, Taiwan is a country, like it or lump it. I mean, for the time being, until China does to Taiwan what they did to Hong Kong. Anyway, life goes on. So you're walking around a mall and you're seeing all these stores looking for people. I mean, how do you gauge the economic recovery in your neck of the woods?
So for instance, I see places where it says you can get hired doing like framing for like windows and so forth. $25 an hour. Like, the hell with the $15 minimum wage stuff. Like, you could go out right now and get yourself a really good job, especially, young people who can be trained on and are able to do things like construction and hard labor. You could make really good money right now. I've been trying to explain this to somebody I know out in Milwaukee who, he thinks he can't get a job because he has some criminal record. And it's like, none of that matters right now. There are places that will hire felons. There are places that will hire you with whatever on your record. There's so much job opportunities right now. I'm working my Monday through Friday job. I also am actually working 2 part-time jobs on top of it because there's just so much job openings right now. There's so much money to be made. And
wow. Well, don't be surprised if Canadians start filtering across the border once our communist prime minister finally opens things up. I suspect he may have to, but it wouldn't surprise me if Canadians sick of the lockdowns, sick of these draconian COVID measures up here, start heading for points south of the border and thinking, hey, I mean, if they can cross from the southern border from Mexico into Texas, maybe Canadians can start crossing into Michigan and North Dakota and Montana, Washington, Idaho. You know what I'm saying? Like, it wouldn't surprise me if you start seeing Canucks down there looking for work. I mean, I don't know. What do you think? Is that a possibility?
Oh, well, I mean, if somebody from Canada wanted to come into the United States, I think in many areas it's probably just a walk through a forest.
Well, you'd risk being shot, wouldn't you?
No. I don't think anyone's going to stop you from coming in from the north.
Yeah? I could try to swim Lake Ontario. It'd be a heck of a swim for me. Anyway, my friend, thanks for coming on the show. Always a blast.
No problem. Thank you for having me.
Miles Kristen, coming to us from Madison, Wisconsin. And that's it for me on this edition of the Mark Petroni Show. Hope you enjoyed it. A lot of fun bringing the show to you, and lots more to come on Saga 960. So I will see you tomorrow. Ciao for now.
No radio? No problem. Stream us live on saga960am.ca.